I still have the fighter in me. I want to fight. I want to fight the best out there. If you give me Inoue right here, right now, or anybody else at the top level, I'll say yes. You know, because that's just the type of person that I am. I want to fight the best out there. But obviously, the body in itself it's you know we have to kind of take care of it.
Welcome to Spotlight Interview. I am George Jakovic. Let's get the guests up so I can introduce them. Let everyone see who we have on the show today. Look at that. We got the champs, Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Adjeri, the Hall of Famer, Teddy Atlas, and the man of the hour, the future Hall of Famer, the Filipino Flash, Nonito Donaire. Nonito, thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to kick this off, and then you guys are going to have a boxing conversation. Nonito, you had a title fight in July. You lost it. It was a tough fight. You've been a pro for, I think, 22 years. So the main thing I want to know, are you going to fight again, or are you calling it a wrap on an absolutely brilliant, great career?
Well, you know, it's really hard to ask that question to a fighter. I mean, if a fighter can fight forever, they would fight forever. At least for me, I love being in that ring, you know, but at the same time, I'm in that level where I got to think of my family, my kids, and all of that stuff. And, you know, as much as I want to do things, I want to continuing, but it depends right now. But the body is like, you know what, you need to rest for a little bit, think it all out, recover, get all the injuries out. And if time comes where, you know what, I still want to do this and I got the support from everybody, hey, let's do it.
Yeah, that's amazing, champ. We all go through that. Father Time gets us all. He's undefeated. And sometimes you just gotta kind of reassess, and like you said, it's the body. It's never the mind. Like I don't know, some guys might be, but I'm like you. I would fight, and I've been fighting professionally for 20 years myself, between kickboxing and boxing, and I never want to stop. I never wanted to be out of the ring, but the body is a different story, and being able to listen to that and understand that, you know, this thing is finite. We need to take care of it. I think it's tough for all of us. You know, how is life outside of boxing? What is your prospect looking past the sport, being outside of the ring?
The thing that I'm doing right now is, you know, in boxing, you find that purpose, right? And you have to admit to yourself that, you know what, I'm getting there, and I might not be able to box in a couple of years or any of that. And so my mindset is, I got to prepare for things. What is my purpose in life now? And I think every man has to have a purpose in order for them to live life. Like training in the morning for me was fighting, right? And so now I have this thing that we're doing with my wife in the business, and my purpose is to help the world. You know, we're doing a lot of things outside of boxing. I mean, I know I want to help the kids up, you know, as they need to get into boxing and stuff like that. Not my kids, but fighters, youngins, you know. And I want to help them out. You know, I want them to see, you know, sometimes my wife and I read the contracts for them so that they don't get fooled by anything. You know, it's so enticing, especially you're young, you're entertained by boxing. You want to get to the top, and people are promising you this, promising you that. And I've been there, and I know a lot of fighters been, and I think all the fighters have been there. So for me, I want to guide them to do the right things. But aside from that, outside of being in the boxing world and helping the up and comers, I'm doing other things business-wise and helping the world, and that is, you know, helping sustainabilities, energies, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that I'm doing right now that's outside of boxing, and you know, turning one, you know, I guess we call it alchemy in a way, turning one thing to another. You know, our business is turning trash into energy and turning dirty water into drinking water. So that's my purpose right now in my life, is being able to help our planet to get into a different level. But again, you know, every man needs that purpose, and my purpose right now is to help this world.
Well, it
guys
sounds like
going from the ring to saving the world.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it sounds like you continuing being a champion outside of the ring, and which is sometimes even more important. The way you conduct yourself, the way you think, the way that you behave, as I always talk about. It's one thing to be a champion, to know how to fight like a champion, but you've also always known how to behave like a champion. And obviously you haven't lost that ability now that you're moving towards being outside the ring. So I applaud you for that. We all applaud you for that. You're a great ambassador for the sport. I'll tell you right now, Nonito, just listening to you talk, the things that you're involved with, but you know, the champion you've been, the Hall of Fame career that you've had. You're a great ambassador for the sport. That we need ambassadors for the sport, to be quite honest. And you'd be a great one. That's important. We need ambassadors for the sport. But I would really be really remiss if for the fan base out there if I didn't talk about your incredible fight with who I think right now. I mean, you've been, well, you're a Hall of Fame. It's just a matter of when you go in, but you've been a great champion. But you fought who I think right now is pound for pound the best fighter. I think it's Crawford and Inoue. And you fought Inoue, and nobody expected at that point in your career, my God, at that point in your career, for you to fight the fight that you fought with Inoue, the first fight. Just incredible. Can you comment on that? Because Inoue, you get these special. Obviously you're a special fighter, but Inoue right now for this time is the best. As I said, him and Crawford, and just a very special fighter for a lot of reasons. Can you take us back to that performance with Inoue and what you found him to be, and also how you were able to have that kind of performance with such a special fighter at this point in your career?
I think going into the fight, you know, we're very, very confident, but at the same time, he's never faced or never really cared too much about the opponent that he has. So, you know, there was no caution in his fighting. So when he came into the fight, like he did with everybody else, he just went and destroyed them. And so for me, that gave me an opening to fighting the way I did, the way I do, in looking at all the cracks and the in-betweens of his opening, which he gave up because he was very offensive. And so when it came to it, the opening and you know, he tried to back me up the very first minute until he realized he couldn't. And that's when he tried to do different ways of fighting. But because he never really liked going back, it was easier for me to catch him. It was easier for me to go in there and do my thing. And it was easier to fight that way rather than box and how I fought in the past, because the thing about the experiences, you can tell people's body movement, you know, unless they're trying to be tricky, and fighting outside is very dangerous for a guy like me now, as compared to being inside, because I just know the tricks of blocking and moving and seeing the body, and I can tell, and I can even if I see the punch coming at me, I know how to take away the power. And so that's why in that fight, the very first fight, it was easier for me to perform in that particular way, is because I had it my way. I took the distance away, which he didn't. He felt very uncomfortable in all of that, because he didn't know how to fight backing up. He's always backed everybody up. He's always had his power. And mind you, he's a terrific fighter with incredible talent, speed, and power. Pretty much similar to mine. And I remember him saying, you know, growing up, he looked up to me, and that's what he was trying to base his style on terms of like power and speed. And you know, he just showed up that way. But in that particular fight, I do remember I was able to take away the distance, and that's what made the fight the difference in the fight.
Was that the last great, because everybody comes to a point in their career, and I had actually said you were underdog, obviously, going in at that point in your career. And I remember when I handicapped that fight, I said there's one thing that you got to look out for, that the great fighters that are getting older, getting in the twilight or in the twilight of their career, that Customato used to say this to me all the time, that the great ones on one given night can pull it together one more time. One more time. They can like reach out to the boxing gods above and say, give me that one more night. And they mentally, physically, emotionally can put it together. Was that your one? For me, it was, but it's got to come directly from you. I want to ask you, was that your one more night to be great again? Because, and did it take everything you had left really in you to do that at that point in your life?
I think in this point, I think I have a lot more one more time. It's just that I have to be challenged, to be mentally, physically challenged to see myself beyond what I can do. You know, to be able to focus mentally, physically, and be determined enough to be like I how I trained back in the days. You know, and that's the thing about the older fighters is they need to have some type of emotion attached to a particular fight so that they can perform at the highest level. And that's why for me, I'm always reaching out to fight the best out there, is because I need to bring that out. And if you don't have what it takes for me to give that respect, then you know, I might suffer a loss, but it's that mentality that I just have to have the best guy in front of me in order for me to think. And I think I put that statement on me to be able to perform. And you know, I got the worst end of it, of course, but I think with the man, with the fighter being in that level and being accomplished, it's they, you know, they pick and choose. At least for me, I pick and choose, and it's the wrong thing. It's the wrong mentality, and I shouldn't be in the game anymore because of that mentality. But fighting the best makes me fight at my best.
You know, it's funny because Nonito, you've always kind of lived that way that you're describing right now. You know, you took on Darchinian when really nobody knew you yet, and he was the boogeyman. You know, then I remember you were a fighter of the year. And you took on the guy nobody wanted to fight, which was Rigondo. You know, like at the moment where you're at the top of your game, and you know the Rigondo is a guy that, for the most part, by and large, a lot of guys avoided almost his whole career. You said, nah, you know, I'm taking him on and I'm fighting him. You know, and then of course in this situation with Naoya Inoue as well, you know, you know, that's the boogeyman again, but you're looking to always test yourself. So it's not just words with you, it's obviously actions as well, and different parts of your career show that. My question is, you are at this age now, and I think all of us older guys will attest to this. Your mind can be there. How do you keep your body there? Because obviously your mind, I can hear you talking. You have the fighter still in you. You know, you're one more night. There's still plenty of them, all that stuff. But how do you keep your body at a point where your mind is at? Because that was, for my own personal perspective, that was where I found the imbalance at a certain point. My mind wanted to be there, but my body would get injured in training or couldn't push it as much because of injuries and things like that, and wasn't reacting the same way. How do you find that balance later in your life, especially when you're compartmentalizing other goals, because you are also preparing for life after boxing, and you have some really exemplary goals that we were talking about earlier. But so in the balance of all that, how do you kind of keep your body in a position where it can compete at a high level?
I just probably need to turn to an Android or something, man, because I swear, like you said, Paulie, you know, my body just hurts. You know, and this is why I'm taking the time off to just heal everything and see what I can go from there. I mean, like you said, I still have the fighter in me. I want to fight. I want to fight the best out there. If you give me Inoue right here, right now, or anybody else at the top level, I'll say yes. You know, because that's just the type of person that I am. I want to fight the best out there. But obviously, the body in itself you know, we have to kind of take care of it. You know, like you said, training wise now, there's always an injury now. There's always this, there's always that. And you go out there, not giving you an excuse, but not 100%. Not that everybody comes in 100%, but I you know, there's just things that at this level where it hurts longer, it hurts more, but you just suck it all up and you know, and you go for it. But you know, no matter how much you try in eating healthy and having a great lifestyle, but you know, I'm training here and there. You give it a week or two, and you're training again and bending the knees a little bit, and you're like, oh, I feel that on my knee, you know. So there's just that, and like I said, if I can do it for the rest of my life, and I'm good with it, I would love to do it. But obviously, you know, as the truth be told, the body is replicating at a different level, and it is becoming blurry. Where the mind, and that's why you have to align the body and the mind in order for you to be to live your life, because sometimes when you know that you can't perform, but your mind says yes, and it's not aligned, that's where you stress yourself out. That's where you're frustrated and depressed, because you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do. You just gotta admit what life is about, and this is why I'm taking this time to heal and go back into training and schedule a fight. And if at that time where I get injured in between, I'm like, you know what, I have to admit and I have to be real with myself that this is no longer my stage.
Nonito, in 2001, you turned pro. You knocked out Jose Lazaro in 1 round. That was 2001. You could have never dreamed that 22 years later, you'd still be, I mean, you just fought for a title. I mean, did you have any idea that when you turned pro, your career was going to last over 2 decades?
No, not at all. It's funny because when I lost the Olympic trials, I said, I'm done. You know, I'm done with this, you know. And so I won my first fight. I'm like, oh wow, I got power into the professional level. And I lost my second fight, and I said, I am done. And so this is it for me. I'm not doing it. And I only got into boxing because my brother wanted to fight, you know. And so we had our thing with Cameron Duncan, and in order for my brother to fight, I had to sign with my brother, because Cameron was trying to look, you know, he looked at my value, and so my brother wanted to keep going. I didn't want a part of any of it, you know. I'd fight because I'm like, you know what, they're giving me a couple $100, let's do it. You know. So I got into it, and I just kept fighting. I didn't really care too much of who they put in front of me, and just fought, and I got to that top without even thinking of becoming a world champion, and became world champion. I still couldn't believe I was a world champion. You know, it took years to believe that, for me to think, I'm like, wow, I'm actually up here.
But well, you made your mark in the pros, obviously, right? But you also made your mark when you left the amateurs. Quite a few years ago, 25 years ago, whatever it was. You just touched on it when you lost in the Olympic trials. And I was there covering those fights. So I remember one of those fights with you and your brother that I didn't think you really lost, but that happens a lot in the amateurs, unfortunately. You get politics, you get favoritism, you get all that stuff. But why don't you, it's kind of a fun story for the fans out there that don't see that side of boxing. You know, here you are, Hall of Fame fighter, champion, and you know, sooner or later you're going to be leaving the sport. But like I said, you left an indelible mark on the amateurs the way you left. You didn't just leave like another guy. You did your own sit down. You know, your own, with you and your brother. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
So you know, it was my brother fought the same guy in the semifinal, and I thought he won that fight. And so for me, coming into the final for the Olympic trials, I thought I won the fight. You know, first round was rocky. Second round, third round, I came in, and usually I had to score about 40 points in the amateurs, from 30 to 40 points. And that fight, I've only scored 5. So for me, it was, you know, and I was throwing a lot of punches, and so I felt frustrated. And my brother and I had to meet in the losers bracket, for this, you know, to get to fight again, to become alternate. And so both of us got to the fight in the losers bracket, and we got our gears and everything. We got our gloves on. We were ready to go. And he was across the ring, and I was across the other ring, and, you know, across him. And so when we bell rang, we just both sat down. You know, it was our protest that, you know, it wasn't fair, and that's you know, that was the statement that we wanted to make, that, you know, we work our butts off for this. You know, our lives, our goals, our dreams, this is what we want to become. And none of you guys who's never been in this damn ring, or even taking the time to train, don't have the right to take that away from us. And so both my brother and I, we sat down in protest of the decision.
Nonito, I remember that, but I didn't remember the context. I didn't realize that you had that was set up in the way where you guys were about to meet in the final of the losers bracket. Because if people don't understand, when you lose in the Olympic trials, you get another chance to get back in by going into the losers bracket. But you've got to win the losers bracket to then fight the winner of the original bracket. So you and your brother got to the final of the losers bracket as well, and then so you were on the verge of fighting Valoria again, and instead you had this protest. And for context, for everybody at home, Valoria was the amateur world champion in '99. So they want the United States, USA Boxing wanted him at the Olympics at all costs. And so the decisions didn't go the way of the Donaire brothers that went to Valoria, and this is why the protests happened. Now you've kind of put it more together for me, because I remember you and your brother sitting in the ring, and I didn't understand the context. I knew it was a protest, but I didn't know that you had actually met up to fight each other in the losers bracket. That's wild. That's wild. Bro, one more question though, because while we're on that part of your career, how did the Elizondo fight even get made? Elizondo, you said you lost your second pro fight, right? It was to Gabriel Elizondo, right? Was it to Elizondo?
It was
Rosendo Sanchez.
Oh, Rosendo.
Yeah, he's a trainer
now. But how did that fight even get made? Because wasn't he a pretty good amateur himself?
Right. He was at 122 at that time, and I was only 106, right? But being provoked. There was a guy in between that was in our team that was provoking all of us, both of us, and I wanted to leave that team because I thought it was very toxic, and I just wanted, I didn't want to deal with boxing at that time because I was very heartbroken. So they wanted to get this fight, and because I wanted to get out of their team. So it was like, you know what, I'm gonna pitch you to the next guy in your weight, and so, it was 122, and of course being hot-headed, I'm like, you know what, I don't care what weight you are, I'll fight you regardless, And so we fought, and I rocked them, and I almost knocked them out. And it was a 5-round fight, by the way. Because we were both elite amateurs that they said we couldn't do 6, but you guys can do 5. So it was a 5-round fight, and I thought I won that fight as well. And again, another heartbroken decision that left me feeling like I'm done with the game.
And then you're done. So you're done.
Well, champ, thank God you weren't done any of those times, because like we've been talking about, you had such a fantastic career. And to George's point, we are now 21 years of your pro career. You've witnessed a lot of changes in this sport, and there's been a lot recently. HBO has left the game a few years ago. Showtime just left the game. What are your thoughts on where boxing's headed now in terms of the network changes, the promoters? You've been here so long, and you've been in this sport for so long. You've seen everything. You've worked with everyone, all these different networks. So what's your take on that and moving forward with the sport?
I think the sport is wanting to be more, and so they are trying to bring everybody in. The sports in itself is heading into a point of just, it's an entertainment, but we know how great the sport is, that even from MMA to YouTubers, they come and box. They don't do any other things. Boxing is such a great historical game, and it's a science, and it's beautiful. And people are seeing that regardless if they're from the MMA, they all come to boxing. Where boxing is right now, I think it just needs to shift in creating a promotion, the way to get it out there by because right now the boxing is so diluted with the way I'm an old school fighter. It's like you call me out, I'm gonna fight. Yeah. Now it's like, how much can you pay me? How much am I gonna get? And I think that's keeping boxing in a loop of I guess ultimately when it comes down to it, boxing has lost its essence in the way it was. But this is from an older guy like myself. Boxing is a beautiful sport, but it's becoming a sport that is an entertainment, and it's always been an entertaining sport. But now you don't have to have skills to be in there. As long as you have people behind you, you'll get the money. I mean, all these guys, we've worked for years and years and years and years, and we've got paid pennies. And these guys just come in and get millions of dollars. And they deserve it because they put their time in creating something out there all I'm saying is the world is changing, and boxing has to change along with it. And I don't, as much as to say that these guys are making more money than these people who put all their lives into the game. But you have to look at it that the world is changing, and therefore you have to see boxing of how boxing is going to be in the future. And boxing in the future is collecting fans and likes, because this is how our people are now. The kids are living a life that they're depressed in their real life, but in social media they have so much like, and they're happy, and people think that's how life is. And so, ultimately boxing is changing. The world is changing. And it's, in order for all of us to really get to our success, we have to change along with the world.
Talking to Nonito Donaire, future Hall of Famer. I want everyone to go around, give a last goodbye. But Nonito, I want to say something. I'm lucky enough to do these shows with Teddy and Chris and Paulie every day. And when you were fighting in July, I joked around with Chris and Paulie, and I said, "Hey guys, Nonito's 40, man. You guys are around the same age. Are you guys going to come back?" And they both said, "Nonito has what we don't have. He's got that power. He can end a fight with one punch." So, here they are all these years later, still in awe of your power. But guys, I want you all three to have a chance to we're going to wrap this interview up. Say a final goodbye for the day. Chris, any last words for the champ?
Nonito, it's wild that we're the same age, because I feel like I've been watching you forever. I've been a huge fan for as long as it can be, and it's a real honor to call you a friend, to be able to talk to you like this. And thanks for joining us, brother. I wish you the best always, and no matter what choice you make.
Yeah, and
thank you, man.
We're always rooting for you, man. You've been a good guy and one of the good guys in the sport, and from the amateurs to the pros, taking on the top level. I mean, even the guy I mentioned, Valoria, he wanted to become a world champion too. So you've been at a high level, consistently taking on the best, consistently testing yourself against the best. Really, not just talking about it like you said, like you were just talking about it now, but also living it in an exemplary fashion. I commend you, and I'm not just a friend, I'm a fan, man. So keep up the good work. And one more question about your opponents. Who would win, Rigondeaux when you fought him, or Inoue when you fought him? If they fought?
I would say Inoue has that the thing about me was I think too much. Inoue just goes and try to destroy you. The only time he started thinking was when he faced me, and that's when he started to be more thick. But Rigondeaux is very, very, very slick. But the difference between me and Inoue is I've always looked for the head. Inoue looks for the body too. And with the body and the head, it's just a matter of time before he catches him.
Yeah, to the point, nobody wanted to fight Rigondeaux. To Paulie's point, I mean, you fought him. You picked him out. And, to me, he was the greatest Olympic fight I had seen. I did the Olympics when he was 18 years old, his first Olympics. And when I saw him, I said, wow, this guy's really special. And he was one of those rare guys that didn't have to throw a lot of punches to dominate you. He was a pure, in a couple areas, which somebody might be great in one area, but he was a pure counterpuncher, great defensive fighter, and a great body puncher. And he had power. And like you said, we talked about, you seeked it out, and that's what makes you special. A couple of things, and I'll finish on that the 80s was really healthy in boxing. We had the networks. We had a lot of great fighters. You got great fighters today, too. But the problem is they don't fight each other. And you touched on about the money. But when you had the Hearns, the Duran, the Benitez's, the Leonards, the Haglers, all those guys, yeah, they made money. But it was about showing how great they were. It was about that drive inside of them that they wanted to find out for themselves. You touched on it earlier. They wanted to find out for themselves how great they were. And they knew the only way they could do that was fight great fighters. And today, we got more businessmen. Put it that way, okay? Yes. To be very nice.
100%.
To be very nice about it. So you brought that. You brought that, and you brought the last thing I'll say is what I always talked about when I did all the commentating all those years on ESPN, and still today, it's not just enough, and I touched on it earlier, to fight like a champion. You got to behave like one. You always knew how to behave like one, and you were a teacher. You taught us that you can be great in more ways than just the way that you make your living. You can be great in the way that you live your life. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Teddy. You know, it's just, I grew up in a level where I didn't have anything, and so when I came in to the United States, where I was able to have a lot of things, I was grateful. You know, and everything that I accomplished, I was grateful. And I think that's something that we as human beings, we forget to be grateful just for the little things we don't even say thank you to. I mean, again, I will ask every man in here, have you ever even seen yourself say thank you to yourself? You know, that's the thing that we lose the essences. We leave ourselves and we give to everybody else. And this is why I'm proud of myself to be able to teach and to be a value to society, or to the people, to the upward-comers, is because I value myself. I appreciate myself, and I'm grateful for every little things I get into, I experience, whether the win, whether the loss, everything that I do, I am grateful. And I think this is why I live my life. And maybe as a 40-year-old, you know, turning 41 next week or week and a half, you know, I live a life of being youthful, that I have that youthful energy, because I'm just grateful for every moment that I have, because tomorrow's never promised. All I know is that I'm living this moment, I'm loving this moment. I may not be perfect at it, and I may mess up at times, especially with my wife or with my kids or with myself, but I know not to give up. And this is why I lose, I get back up, you know, and this is why I find a wall, but I break it, find a way to break it, find a way to get back. And you know, like I said, I lost in the Olympic trials. I lost my second fight, and I told myself, I'm like, you know what? I am done. I am done. How many times I have said I am done, but deep within me, I've always said, no, I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I will rise higher than I have because of this opportunity and because of this experience.
Well, Nonito, we're grateful that you joined us today. And look, you've been a great ambassador for the sport. You've been a great champion, and you're even a greater person outside of the ring. So that's something that's needed in the world today. And no matter what you do with your career, we're all going to be rooting for you, along with all of your fans. So I want to thank you so much for doing this. We look forward to talking to you again, hopefully in person next time, because I know you did an interview with ProBox Spanish, and I think you were sitting on Marco Antonio Barrera's lap during that interview. So maybe
I don't sit on nobody's lap. It was Marco who sat on my lap.
Okay, well, maybe Chris will volunteer to sit on your lap for an interview that we do in person. So there we go. Nonito.
Chris just gotta cook me some good food, and he can sit on my lap.
Oh well, Chris,
gotta earn it. Gotta earn it.
Yeah. Chris is a good cook, so look, I'll make a promise for Chris. Nonito, thank you so much. Everyone out there, click on the link, download. You get champions like this. I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer, Nonito Donaire. And you look at this panel, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, and Teddy Atlas. This is the kind of talk you get at ProBox TV every day. ProBox TV is your boxing channel.